Hey there and welcome back to Mass Effect 2. My name is Pete and today we complete the second loyalty mission of this playthrough, also the last one we can complete before we have to move the main storyline forward, but in my opinion it is another very well crafted mission and it will also allow us to unlock another achievement. And as you probably already know from the video's title, we are taking on Kasumi's loyalty mission today, which will lead us to the mansion of arms dealer Donovan Hawk. Hawk has killed Kasumi's former partner Keiji Okuda, and he also took Keiji's graybox, a neural implant that stored Keiji's memories, including a potentially very dangerous secret, although we have no idea yet what that secret actually is. And I would say that's about all we need to know before jumping in. Let's travel to the Serpent Nebula where the mission will take place. For this mission we will have to leave the Widow system, so it's a good idea to stock up on both fuel and probes, and then we can make the journey over to the Boltzmann system. In here we have 5 planets, however only 4 of them can be scanned, so let's get this over with quickly. Starting us off, we have the gas giant Feynman, which doesn't really offer us that much here. After only 4 probes, the planet was already depleted, and we leave again with 2,000 units of iridium, 1,000 units of platinum, and another 2,000 units of palladium. Up next, we travel closer to the center of the system, to the planet Wheeler, and this mineral-filled rock planet definitely gave us a bit more. In total, I was able to obtain over 7,000 iridium, 4,000 platinum, and 3,500 palladium. Moving on to number 3, we have the dwarf planet Toft, which comes from the Dutch word for head, and I hope I pronounced that at least somewhat correctly. The planet itself then shows us why it has already been used in industrial mining, as we also obtain a good amount of minerals here, with just over 6,000 iridium, 3,000 platinum, and 4,000 palladium. Our 4th and final scanning destination is then the gas giant Feldman, another Dutch name by the way, at least as far as I know, but this time we don't obtain that much, just around 2,000 units each of iridium, platinum and palladium. And that now brings us to Bekenstein. As one of the first human colonies established, Bekenstein has a fairly industrial focus. For some of Bekenstein's residents that led to a lot of wealth, and as you will see shortly, Donovan Hawk is among them. However, as we already know, he also frequently takes steps on the other side of the law, which is in the end why we are here. As you can see by the way, it is not possible to mine anything on this planet, so let's land and begin the mission.
You clean up well, Mr. Solomon Gunn. Hawk won't know what hit him.
So, Solomon Gunn, that will be Shepard's alias for this mission. Hopefully though, in terms of backstory, Kasumi has a bit more than just a name for us.
I assume Solomon Gunn is my cover?
You run a small but talented band of mercs out in the Terminus systems. Precisely the type of person Hawk respects. I took the liberty of giving you a reputation. Papers, witnesses, article in Badass Weekly. Just don't start talking business with him, and you'll be fine.
Looks like Kasumi already has a bit of a profile on Hawk, and I think it can't hurt if we ask her to share her intel with us.
Remind me, what kind of man are we dealing with?
Hawk's a weapons dealer and smuggler. He killed my partner and stole his graybox. Other than that, he's not so bad. Rich, charismatic, willing to crack open a man's skull to get at the neural implants inside.
As you have probably also noticed by now, Shepard is dressed up quite nicely, so it looks like we will be attending some form of event.
I take it I'm wearing this getup for a reason.
You'd look really out of place at a society party in armor, don't you think? You look great. You should wear this stuff more often.
Right, so that's the situation we're dealing with. Time to learn how Kasumi plans to use it to our advantage.
Now's probably a good time to fill me in on the details.
You have been waiting patiently. Our friend Hawk is throwing a party for his closest friends. A couple dozen of the worst liars, cheaters, and mass murderers you'll ever want to meet. All bringing gifts as a tribute to the man himself. Our tribute is a lovely statue of your old friend Saren, rendered with loving detail and filled to the brim with our weapons and armor. You can keep your pistol as long as it's concealed. They won't hassle you over a sidearm. Once inside, we'll make our way to Hawk's vault door, somewhere in the back of the ballroom. Then, we case the security and start peeling away the layers. The statue should be there, waiting for you to crack it open and arm up. Then we just waltz into the vault and take back Keiji's graybox, and I'll finally get a chance to say goodbye.
Alright, quite the elaborate plan we have there. However, I think it is also quite clear that this is not just another job for Kasumi.
You've worked really hard on this. Keiji must have meant a lot to you.
Was I that obvious? Keiji's graybox holds a lot of priceless personal memories. It's all that remains of who he was. But the secret he discovered is dangerous. I wouldn't bring you here if it wasn't.
Now, it sure would be nice to know what that secret is before we jump into the lion's den, and maybe Kasumi can tell us a bit more.
What's in the graybox that makes it worth all this trouble?
The graybox holds Keiji's memories. Everything from all the codes and plans he stole to all the time we spent together. Wrapped up in those memories is the secret he stole. Keiji never told me what it was, but the information got him killed.
Well, that does seem like it could be dangerous if the graybox falls into the wrong hands, and at the moment I think we'd rather have it on board of the Normandy than in the hands of Donovan Hawk.
This ought to be interesting.
That's what I'm going for. This is our stop. After you, Mr. Gunn.
Just one moment, sir. There seems to be an issue with the statue.
Is there a problem here?
No, Mr. Hawk. Just doing a scan.
I don't believe we've met. Donovan Hawk.
And here we are being greeted by the man himself, so let's introduce ourselves.
Solomon Gunn. A pleasure. Sir, the scanners aren't picking anything up.
I don't think our guests would come all the way here from Ilium just to cause trouble. Do you? You may pass through, Mr. Gunn, with my apologies. But I will ask your companion to remain outside. You understand, I hope.
Well, looks like things are already not going as planned, but maybe we can at least get a reason.
Care to explain why my friend has to stand outside?
I don't like the look of your friend, so she stays outside. Simple as that.
Okay then, time to obtain the first morality points of the mission. We really have no other choice here than to accept Hawk's conditions, so we might as well get ourselves 2 Paragon points in the process.
No problem. You're the host.
Enjoy the party.
Well, that didn't go as I expected.
Now, Hawk of course did not tell us anything useful, but maybe Kasumi herself knows a bit more about why she needs to stay outside.
Any idea why he'd send you away?
No, we've never seen each other in person, and no one knows what I look like. Just watching his ass, I'm sure. I can't blame him.
Well, no need to be a jerk about it, after all it is still her heist, so let's get 2 more Paragon points and learn how to proceed.
What do we do now?
We go on with the plan. You'll just have to do all the talking. I'll stay out of sight and stick with you the best I can. We'll keep radio contact in case something goes wrong. We need to find the door and case the security. We'll figure out the next step then.
Alright, here we are inside of Hawk's mansion, and our first task is to find the door to the vault. So let's have a look around, listen in on a few conversations, and see what we can find.
How did you ever contain that situation on Olive?
Oh, that? A quick application of force, a little pressure, and bam! Done.
Thank goodness. I thought those rabble would dog you for years.
Some say Commander Shepard is still alive. Really?
Oh, please. It's wishful thinking at best.
Interesting what they have to say about us here, but even more interesting, this door right here.
That goes to a security room. We'll probably have to get in there at some point. Let's case the vault and figure out what we have to do.
Nothing we can do with this until we find the vault, so let's keep a looking.
Mr. Gunn.
We need to case the vault, Gunn. You can chat up Hawk later.
Donovan Hawk then also does not want to talk to us at the moment, so let's continue scouting the mansion, which reveals another interesting door over on this side here.
Hawk's private rooms are off limits without proper clearance.
I'm dying to get in there, but we have to scope out the vault first.
And once again, Kasumi reminds us that the vault has priority. Before we have a look at that though, let's head outside to the balcony.
Say, what's that over there?
Hawk's bedroom, I believe.
Wow, who's his architect? This is a very impressive place.
Or a very large one, at least.
I hear Mr. Hawk's vault is exquisite.
Who could know? He never lets anyone near it.
Right, outside here on the balcony we can find a datapad, and this gives us some info that we could potentially exploit by mentioning the security chief Rowe, who seems like she has quite the temper.
Chief Rowe, huh? She sounds like a hard ass. If we could tap into the guard's communications, I could probably use this information.
What's your read on that Archangel guy?
I hear he's dead. Or gone, or something. Good riddance, I say.
Right, so a small bit about Archangel here, but we should also keep security communications in mind, as we now make our way downstairs to the conveniently completely unguarded vault.
Very nice. There's more here than I expected. Password-protected voice lock, kinetic barrier, DNA scanner. Looks like an EX700 series. Everything a vault needs to be impenetrable.
This gonna be a problem?
Please, remember who you're talking to. We'll need to get a voice sample for the voice lock. You'll have to go chat up Hawk for that. We'll have to find a password too. DNA, child's play. We should find plenty of DNA samples in Hawk's private quarters. And the barrier? Cut the power. Never fails. If we can find it. Keiji could get through a system like this in his sleep. And I'm better. Let's get to it.
Alright, we have 3 layers of security to crack, and our first opportunity presents itself right here around the corner.
It looks like the barrier's power cable runs under the floor here. I'll set your Omni tool to scan for electromagnetic fields.
Using our Omni tool, we can now follow the power cable through the house, because shutting off the power, that is hopefully going to be enough to shut off the barrier. The power cable goes past Hawk himself and then disappears into the wall, and going around the corner then reveals its destination.
One sec. That should take care of the barrier.
Alright, that's the first of 3 defenses down, time to take care of number 2. And for this we need to return to the security room to obtain the password.
Did you hear? Santiago was attacked, in his own base.
Really? By whom?
Zaid Masani of all people. Thankfully, Vito escaped.
Interesting to hear that our mission with Zaid has apparently also caused some waves. However, at the moment we have more important things to take care of.
Let me unlock that security room door for you. There we go.
Right, we are now very much inside of an area that we should not be in, and Kasumi has also uncloaked again and has joined us. The security room itself is then locked behind another door, but getting inside is not too hard, and now we have no other option but to fight. Of course, we have no armor, no third squad mate and only the pistol, but that should still be enough to take these 2 enemies out. In this fight we can also get a first look of Kasumi's Shadow Strike ability, which is powerful enough to almost kill an Eclipse Trooper who still has some of his shields, and could therefore be a huge help in some of the later fights of the game.
I have an idea. See what you can find.
What we can find before having a look at the datapad on the table, that is a medical station as well as a wall safe, the latter arguably the more interesting one of the 2, with a loot of over 7,000 credits. After grabbing the ammo from the table, we can then have a look at the datapad, and this reveals the current password to be Perugia. However, it also says here that the password itself is not too useful, unless of course we have a voice sample of the man who needs to speak it.
Got something?
The password is Perugia.
Huh. That's the name of the man who stole the Mona Lisa. Nice. I tapped their communications. I think we can get past that private room guard. Tell him Chief Rowe sent you. We still need that voice sample from Hawk.
Right, so now that we know what we're looking for, I think we can have a quick chat with Hawk himself, and hopefully we can keep him talking long enough to obtain a good sample for the voice scanner.
There he is. All you need to do is keep him talking long enough for me to get a voice print. Pull out the charm on this one, Shep. Whenever you're ready.
And of course we're ready. There is really nothing we can do to increase our chances here.
After you.
Mr. Gunn, hope you're having a good time. That scene at the door hasn't soured your evening. I hope.
Right, so as you can see, we immediately have access to a Charm and Intimidate option, which would bring this conversation to a swift and successful end. But let's drag this conversation out a bit. I think Hawk is an interesting character and deserves as much screen time as we can give him.
It's your party. I think you were more than fair.
I'm pleased that you understand. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Not nearly enough of a sample. Keep him talking.
And again, we have two options available on the left here that would turn this conversation around, but let's not make use of our charisma skills just yet.
I was hoping to have a little more of your time.
You have my attention. Use it wisely.
Now, the top and bottom options on the right would also result in this conversation being a success, but they would not give us much in terms of morality points. So let's instead go with the charm option on the top left, which gives us 5 Paragon points and brings this conversation to a more fitting conclusion.
I was hoping we could do business. Did I hear you were looking into the Caliston Rift?
No, I haven't been. Should I be?
Excellent opportunities out there for a man of means and ambition, such as yourself.
I see. Maybe I'll send a crew out there. Could be worth a look. People these days want comfort, entertainment, love. They don't see that the galaxy is fragile. They only have to worry about simple luxuries. Why? Because people like me and you are doing the terrible things that keep the galaxy spinning. This party is for us, the cleaners, the support structure for the galaxy's gleeful delusions of peace. May there always be a market for the things we do.
I said get him talking, and you got him talking. We've got enough of a voice sample. Let him go.
Enjoy the party, Mr. Gunn.
Let's go crack that voice scanner.
And here we are, voice sample recorded, that should be enough. Now only the DNA scanner remains, so Hawk's private quarters look like the place to go next.
Mr. Hawk's private rooms are off limits to guests without security clearance.
With the guard at the entrance here, we can then claim to have authorization. Kasumi will hopefully quickly confirm that by tapping into the guard's communications.
I have clearance to go in.
On whose authority?
And thanks to the datapad outside, we already learned about Chief Rowe and her reputation, so let's put that to good use.
I have authorization from Chief Rowe.
Okay, 1 second. Chief Rowe, Samuels. Have you given access authorization to Mr. Hawk's private rooms?
They have access, Samuels. They'll stop bothering me.
Got it. Sorry to bother you, ma'am. Okay, you're clear to go in.
Enjoy the party.
And once again, here we are. And for this third part of cracking the security system, there are actually 2 ways to go about it. The first is the sneaky, clean way that you can see on screen right now. The other one would involve taking out the guards you can see through the window here, and then climbing across to the bedroom, shooting out a window, and getting inside that way.
Look for anything we can get useful DNA from. Just make it quick and quiet.
It's clean.
It's a plant. Found a sample?
No. A credit chit. No hair, no skin flakes.
The housekeepers must be thorough.
Now, needless to say that I prefer the quiet approach, but this right here would be the entry point for the slightly less subtle one.
Not a great saliva sample, but it's still useful. We're going to need more than this for the scanner, though. Empty. Too bad. A cigarette butt would have been a good source. No DNA, but... Looks like Hawk's been trying to crack Keiji's graybox. Looks like he's missing something. He hasn't cracked the encryption yet.
Good morning. Time to wake up.
Sorry.
Now, the alarm clock here is a bit tricky. It doesn't trigger anything if you go in the sneaky way, but if you came in through the window, it would now summon more guards. So if you prefer that approach, then I would suggest skipping it. I would also recommend not failing on the bypass of the safe here, because doing so will also summon more guards.
The cleaners don't dare touch treasures like this. We can get some skin cells from the dust. It's probably contaminated, though. We should find another sample.
Holographic interface. Won't find a sample here.
And here we are with the last item that we can interact with. If you want to have a look at all of them, then I suggest following the path I took. Otherwise, you might obtain all needed samples too quickly, and at that point the game blocks you from interacting with any more objects. The datapad itself here doesn't really tell us anything that we haven't heard yet. Hawk has tried to get into Keiji's graybox, but for now he has been unsuccessful. Let's hope that stays that way until we can relieve him of it.
We can probably get Hawk's DNA off the datapad. He seems to have obsessed over this. That should do it. Let's get out of here.
Right, and with that we now have everything to get past the scanners. The barrier is down, we have the password as well as voice and DNA samples. So I would say let's return to the vault entrance and see if we can't get inside.
That got it. The barrier's down.
Password required. Voice ID accepted. Welcome, Mr. Hawk. DNA identification affirmed. Welcome, Mr. Hawk.
And here we are, the door is unlocked, let's enter Donovan Hock's vault.
I'll check for security cams. Go ahead and get dressed.
Now we have the option to change our weapons here, but at the moment I am perfectly happy with our current loadout.
So this is Hawk's vault. Very nice. This scanner will hone in on the graybox. It's not far.
Now, before we go straight for the grey box, let's have a look around the vault, as there are a few interesting pieces to be found.
Michelangelo's David. Just... wow. Think we could get this out through the door? Hawk has good taste. I'll give him that.
Before we move on, let's also make sure to grab the credits from the medical station here.
This is nice. Oddly relaxing. Doesn't look like much, but that might be one of the most valuable pieces here. Turian art is rare outside of Palaven. For good reason, I say. Ugh. Rachni Queen. I guess everything's valuable to someone. Wow. Imagine that thing coming at you in a dark alley.
And if you have played Dragon Age Origins, then this piece of art should look familiar to you.
A model of the Kara. It's like a Turian Titanic, the way I hear it. I feel like its eyes are following me. Yikes. This looks like Quarian script. Wow. This has got to be old. When was the last time the Quarians wrote on stone? Creepy. I could still get money for something like this, even outside the Alliance. Asari go nuts for this sort of thing. How did Hawk get Lady Liberty's head? Damn you, Hawk! That's impressive. Not sure what it is, though.
And now, before we grab the grey box, let's have a look at the weapons first.
That's a Casa Locust. No, the Casa Locust. The gun that killed 2 presidents. Gorgeous. It even comes with a perfect copy, too. I'm sure Hawk won't mind if we borrowed these.
This is valuable.
Alright, the M12 Locust, a very good SMG. We can't use it, but Kasumi can, and I will try to talk a bit more about it in a moment. For now, though, let's get our hands on the grey box.
Oh my god. There it is.
Don't bother, Miss Goto. It's code-locked. I had a feeling that was you at the door. I knew if it was really you, you'd get through anyway.
You know me. I don't like to disappoint.
I need what's in your grey box, Kasumi. You know I'm willing to kill you for it. I'll admit your skills are impressive. You got into my vault like I'd left it open, but you're still going to die. Scream. No!
Have I got your attention?
That shut him up.
Kill them!
Right, here we are, enemies incoming, and this is not necessarily an easy fight. Not only do we have a sizable group of enemies against us, but Security Chief Ro is also among them, and she has access to the Incinerate ability as well as to a combat drone. The Renegade interrupt earlier, by the way, that was the only chance for morality points in that conversation, so we did not lose out on any Paragon points, we simply shortened the conversation by a few seconds and earned ourselves 5 Renegade points. Now, there are a few reasons why this fight is pretty difficult, and the fact that we only have Kasumi as our sole squad member is certainly one of them. Additionally, Chief Ro alone already presents a nice challenge, because with shields and armor she is not easy to take down, while at the same time her abilities as well as her M6 Carnifex heavy pistol hit quite hard. So she is able to put a lot of pressure on you, allowing you to pop out of cover only for limited times, which really works to the favor of the remaining enemies in the room. While Chief Ro is perfectly happy staying in the back, the Eclipse troopers are far more aggressive, and they will try to use the room's layout to their advantage, and if possible will come from both sides in an attempt to flank you. However, this fight also allows Kasumi's rapid Shadow Strike ability to shine, because while the enemies are numerous, they don't have much in terms of protection, so their shields are easily removed and then Kasumi can stealth in for the kill. And while she's cloaking and stabbing enemies in the back, we have a bit of time to catch our breath, normally enough to allow shields to regenerate and to then pop out of cover again with full strength. Using Rapid Shadow Strike instead of Deadly Shadow Strike also allows us to repeat this over and over again, as long as we make sure to wear the enemies down beforehand, so that Kasumi's attack gets a guaranteed kill and we benefit from the massive cooldown reduction. Using Adrenaline Rush and a Sniper Rifle also allows you to one-shot kill the Eclipse troopers, but especially at the beginning of the fight they are constantly moving around, so depending on your aiming skills it might be a bit hard to hit them. Me personally, I found the Assault Rifle to be a bit more reliable. Once you are then down to only Chief Ro, you shouldn't have much trouble winning this fight. If you want to, you can now spam Shadow Strike on her even if you don't get the kill, but at least it keeps you safe and conserves ammunition.
Checking blueprints. There's a landing pad to the east. Let's get out of here.
Joker, bring the shuttle in, now!
Once the room is cleared, head for the exit and make sure to interact with the weapons locker even if you don't plan on changing anything, because the locker here completely refills your ammunition. As we can see, Kasumi also has the Locust already equipped, so there is no need for us to make any adjustments. Speaking of ammunition, this mission is actually a very solid choice if you want to stock up your heavy weapon ammo, because once you enter the vault and retrieve your equipment from Saren's statue, you should, at least in my experience, get your heavy weapon ammo stocked up to maximum capacity. Needless to say, that is especially useful if you're wielding the M920 cane and are short on ammunition, but of course it's also pretty convenient for every other heavy weapon in the game. Now, there is also a container of heavy weapon ammo available later on, and admittedly that was one of my reasons for playing through this mission in the first place, so you can imagine that I was pleasantly surprised when I discovered that I didn't even need it. I have to say though that I'm not quite sure if this is a thing that always happens for everyone, but as far as I was able to test it, I always entered the vault with full heavy weapon ammo. For this next section of combat here involving the heavy mech, I think it's a good idea to stay as far back as possible. This allows you to carefully take out some of the troopers before the mech comes into range, and there should also be quite a few obstacles between you and the mech, which block a good portion of the enemy's fire. Once the mech is down, try to go for the headshot if you can. That will cause a big detonation in a few seconds, potentially damaging a few of the other enemies in the area. Even if it doesn't hurt them, it gives you a bit of room to sprint towards the next cover, from where you can then take on the remaining enemies in this corridor. As you can see, among them is also an Eclipse Vanguard, a biotic combat specialist, but as long as you stay in cover and dodge the warp ability, I don't find this enemy to be particularly dangerous. At this point, we can also quickly talk about the M12 Casa Locust submachine gun, the weapon we just picked up earlier in the vault. The Locust is one of only 3 submachine guns in the game, and it definitely makes the default Shuriken obsolete. However, whether or not it's actually the best SMG in the game, that is up for debate. It is definitely the most accurate SMG of the three, and it's also a bit more effective against armor than the other two, but at the same time it lacks stopping power against shields and barriers.
Damn it! We have to find another way.
Overall, the Locust is a fairly well-balanced weapon that can be used in medium to long-range combat, but for strictly close-quarters combat there is a better option available that we will acquire later on in this playthrough. From the datapad here we can then grab another big pile of credits, before we now move on to a section where we will entirely skip the combat. This is a bit tricky, so it's a good idea to save beforehand, but if you have Adrenaline Rush available it becomes a bit easier. As soon as you enter the room, start sprinting, activate the rush, ignore the enemies and head to the left. In quick succession you can then grab the spare parts, the platinum and the med kit before you fire the cannon and eliminate all enemies in the area.
That got it.
What the hell are you people doing down there?
And this is a scripted event that will never leave a single enemy standing.
Kill Solomon.
Before we continue, we can salvage more spare parts, and then it's time for the next combat section that we unfortunately cannot skip. Now at this point I also want to talk about something that I noticed in this playthrough, something I have to admit kind of went past me in my previous playthroughs. And that would be the fact that more or less every single time we're fighting organic enemies, those enemies either belong to the Blue Suns, the Blood Pack or the Eclipse. We were introduced to all three groups back on Omega, and in that setting with the whole power struggle storyline in the slums their presence definitely made sense, but going beyond Omega I feel like they are a bit overused. For the past 16 episodes and in this one as well, if we're not fighting mechs then we're fighting mercenaries, and there are missions like Zaid's loyalty mission for example where it makes perfect sense, and then there are others where they feel a bit shoehorned into the storyline. The Blue Suns and the Eclipse are currently the most prominent examples, but believe me, we will also see more of the Blood Pack down the line, and all in all I think what I'm trying to get at is that I wish there was a bit more enemy variety. And it doesn't even have to be variety in terms of enemy behavior or skills, but maybe simply in design. From a storyline standpoint it feels a bit weird that every single bad guy in this game seems to employ one of the three mercenary groups, of course with the occasional mech sprinkled in here and there. I think simply naming these guys Hawk's bodyguards or something, that could already spice things up a bit and give them a feeling of uniqueness, and then maybe recoloring their armor could make them stand out even more.
Not fought me, Kasumi. You know what happened to your toy when you fought back.
As it stands, after 16.5 episodes, I'm already kind of tired of seeing the same enemies over and over again, especially in these more combat-heavy missions. Now, as we continue with the main storyline, we will of course see other enemies appear as well, but it just became apparent to me when I recorded this episode, there was never any mention of Hawk being involved with the Eclipse, and then all of a sudden the Eclipse are there. That kind of irritated me a bit, and I have not really been able to look past it since. But maybe I'm also being overly critical of what I think is a minor aspect of the game, because in the grand scheme of things it doesn't really take away much from the mission. Yes, for a mission that started off very sneaky and didn't involve any combat at all, the combat parts now feel a bit longer than necessary, especially if you consider that we already skipped one, but overall the overarching storyline is still very intriguing, and the fact that we are being forced to team up only with Kasumi adds an additional layer of challenge. And with that, the group here is also defeated now and we can head for the next area. Before we continue though, it's a good idea to grab any ammunition lying around, because unfortunately we have not escaped yet. The med kit and the tech damage upgrade on the dead mercenary are two more objects of interest, and of course especially the upgrade should not be missed.
This is valuable.
Keep them busy. I'll take care of this myself.
Right, so now Hawk has seemingly entered himself into the combat, however in this area we will not face him yet. Instead, in what is clearly labeled a delaying tactic, we fight more Eclipse mercenaries, and this time they also have a few heavies among them. For the moment there is only one of them in the back, but if we move closer another one will spawn. And I would say that is reason enough to stay put for the time being. We have a great position with good cover that is even a bit elevated, and I see no reason to give that up until we have no more enemies in sight. As you can see, apart from the heavy, we also have another vanguard going up against us here, and that one likes to get up close and personal, which gives you another very good reason to stay in the back and behind cover, as that involves a lot of climbing for the enemy to close the distance. And that should give you enough opportunities to catch the vanguard in a vulnerable position, which should then allow you to take her out before she can do any significant damage. Once the vanguard is down, it's also a good idea to have a look at the loot in the room, because there is quite a lot of it and it's easy to overlook something in the heat of the moment. In the middle of the room we have some platinum as well as some spare parts over on the side, but that's only 2 of 5 objects in total that we can find here. However, our advance has also triggered a few more enemies, so those probably deserve our attention first. As I mentioned earlier, in this group we have another heavy with a rocket launcher, but there is also an engineer among them with access to a combat drone and the incinerate ability. In that regard, the engineer is actually quite similar to Chief Rowe who we faced earlier. The only difference that I can see at the moment is that Rowe also had an additional layer of armor and that her shields had a bit more capacity. Offensively though, it seems like they are more or less the same, so you should definitely pay attention and take out the engineer quickly, if that's possible. At this point, especially on Insanity difficulty, you will very likely also have ammunition problems, because once again the enemies are numerous, you can't really afford to run around much and collect ammo, and you only have 1 squad member to help you deal damage. However, even if you're not like me and try to save up heavy weapon ammo for the M920 Cane, then I would still recommend not using any heavy weapons here, and in just a moment you will also see why. Now, with a bit of breathing room, we can grab the second platinum container of the area. That puts us up to 2000 platinum in total, the maximum amount we can obtain in this mission. One more Shadow Strike then eliminates the final enemy in the area, and with that we are ready to proceed. Before we leave though, we can receive a few more credits from the PDA on the truck here, and then there is also a storage crate at the other end of the room that holds a bit more money. Now that we have everything, we can move on and enter the final area of this mission.
Could have done this the easy way, Gold. Allow me to show you the hard way.
On our right. Look right.
Right, here we are. Donovan Hawk has officially arrived on the battlefield. However, despite him sitting in a gunship, he is not our most pressing concern. Instead, we want to focus our fire on the Eclipse troopers and on the Mech on the right side here, and especially the Mech should be one of the first targets, otherwise it will close the distance quickly and cause a lot of trouble. And what you just saw, that is how the majority of this fight will go. A group of 4 enemies will spawn while Hawk provides covering fire with his gunship, and after a certain amount of time the next group will arrive. There are 3 spawn points on this map where enemies can come from, 1 on the left, 1 on the right and 1 in the back. Meanwhile, the best position for Shepard is right here behind this single box, because that box has an infinite ammo spawn point on top of it.
Coming from the right.
Lay down your weapon.
Now the second group of enemies is coming in from further in the back, and once again there are only 4 of them. For any group coming from there, the sniper rifle should be the weapon of choice. Every single enemy in that group can go down to a well-placed headshot, and because ammunition spawns right in front of you, you should not worry about running out. Having only 4 enemies against us at a time is also very convenient for us in this fight, and that is because of Kasumi's rapid Shadow Strike ability. With 1 round of Adrenaline Rush and a few bursts from the assault rifle, you should be able to remove the shields of at least 2 enemies, which is then most of the time enough to send Kasumi in for the kill on one of them. You can then take out the other one yourself. At that point you only have 2 left, and you can rinse and repeat. Now that is the strategy for the foot soldiers covered. Let us now talk about Donovan Hawk himself. At the moment, both Hawk and his gunship cannot be killed. Still, we are taking shots at him in an attempt to remove his shields, and there is a very specific reason for that. Once the shields are down for the first time, the gunship will vanish for a moment and the shields will automatically regenerate back to full strength. As you can see, that is now the case, and with that as the outcome, you might wonder why we're spending bullets on Hawk in the first place. Now, the first reason is fairly obvious and you should notice it immediately. The gunship has disappeared for the moment and we can focus exclusively on the enemies on the platform. However, that is actually only the secondary reason. The primary reason for taking out Hawk's shields once is that it significantly shortens the length of this fight. More than once is absolutely not necessary though, but the sooner you can entirely remove the shields for the first time, the quicker this fight will be over. While we have a short break in the action, we can also quickly grab the medkit on the wall here, that way we don't have to go back for it later. Now, with the gunship reappearing and more enemies coming in, let's get back to the underlying mechanics of this fight.
If I can get to the ship, I can take down the shield.
As you may have noticed, Kasumi just talked about the gunship and its shields. That marks the first small milestone in this fight, and you can get to it in two different ways. You can either simply take out the gunship's shields once, like we did, or you can simply ignore the gunship entirely and sit through wave after wave of enemies. Sooner or later you will get to the same point, however I think Kasumi's dialogue is slightly different, and your next task will be to defeat all the enemies on the platform. Like Kasumi said, she needs a clear path to the gunship to take out its shields, and that can only be achieved if no more enemies are around. And from that point onwards, you can completely ignore the gunship. Kasumi will shortly take care of the shields for us. Now only a single heavy remains, and once all enemies are down, we will trigger a short yet impressive cutscene.
Shepard, I need a clear path to the gunship. Take out these guards. Got a clear shot. Here we go. Shields down. Let's tear that thing apart.
Right, here we are now, and without shields the gunship is now our #1 priority. Of course, we still have enemies coming in and we cannot afford to ignore them, but now the only thing standing between us and the end of the fight is the destruction of the gunship. To speed up the process, you can actually use the missile launcher quite effectively here. Firing a few quick shots before more enemies appear on the platform can do significant damage, and might even be enough to take the gunship down before the next wave spawns. However, once another group has spawned, then you actually have no other choice but to take them out, because in that case the gunship will retreat for a while and leave you to deal with the mercenaries and mechs. The gunship then only reappears once a group is completely eliminated, which of course only gives you a very limited time window to actually damage it. Once again then, we don't quite manage to take it out before it disappears again, but surviving one more group of enemies should be enough and give us all the time we need to finally end this fight. That wave once again comes in from the right and is also getting a bit stronger now. Instead of the standard trooper, we now also have a single Eclipse Heavy among the enemies. Another reason why you probably don't want to sit there and wait this fight out, because as far as I know the enemies will progressively get more difficult, and especially in medium to short range combat you don't want to deal with heavies too often. Now the gunship is back and we could take it out immediately, but let's be thorough here and make sure none of the enemies get in our way. Now though, I'd say it's time to take the final shot. And here we are, with the gunship going up in flames and the fight finally over. The party has been crashed, Donovan Hawk is defeated, and we still have the graybox, so even though we were discovered, I would still call this mission a success. All that is left to do now is to grab all the loot we can find here on the platform, apart from the medical station that we already emptied that includes 3 medkits as well as a crate of power cells. In the meantime, a shuttle from the Normandy has also landed, and with the mission thoroughly completed, let's make our exit.
Kasumi. If you're seeing this, it's because I'm dead. The information we found is all here. It's big, Kasumi. If the Council ever got wind of this, the Alliance could be implicated. Kasumi, I encrypted the information to keep it safe. And I uploaded the encryption key to your graybox, so no one could get the whole package. But if I'm dead, and if anyone knows about this, then I've made you a target, my love. I'm so sorry.
Keiji.
I know you, Kasumi. You'll want to keep these memories forever. But you don't need some neural implant to know I'll always be with you. Please, Kasumi, destroy these files. There's nothing more I can do to protect you.
I can't do that. This is all that's left.
Goodbye, Kasumi. I love you.
Alright, you can probably already guess where this is going. Keeping the memories, which are of course important to Kasumi, probably also requires keeping a potentially dangerous secret, a secret that could continue to make Kasumi a target.
Is there any way we can just destroy the information?
No. Keiji's a master at encrypting files. He laced the information into his memories. You can't get one without experiencing the other.
So, decision time, and this one is thankfully not as black and white as it seems. The Paragon choice would be to keep the grey box, the Renegade one to destroy it, but there is also a path that gives us a bit of both, and that one gives us 2 Renegade points and allows us to follow Keiji's will.
You heard him, Kasumi. He'd want you to destroy the information and save yourself.
I know. I can't. This is all that's left of him.
And now we still have the option to get the maximum amount of Paragon points out of this conversation, and we can do that by offering to destroy the grey box for Kasumi.
If it's easier, I could do it for you.
Okay. Just get it over with. Please.
And here we are with Kasumi's loyalty mission completed and another level up gained. Kasumi is now loyal, and there is actually no way to end this mission without that being the result, so as a result we unlock the flashbang grenade bonus power for her, as well as a new outfit. We have also obtained and already talked about the M12 Locust SMG. While the tech upgrade here should not be overlooked either, the 20% bonus to tech power damage is definitely nice to have. As usual, we left no stone unturned and grabbed all 60,001 available credits in this mission, and the same also goes for the 2,000 units of platinum. And so we return to the Normandy still in a pretty formal outfit, and that is not a bug. This outfit has now been added to our wardrobe, and if we wanted to, we could wear it every time we're not wearing armor. Before we now wrap the episode up, let's stop by Kasumi's quarters one last time. After all we just went through, she might have a line or two to say.
Hey, got a minute? I really appreciate your help with the Hawk heist. I know why we had to destroy Keiji's gray box, but it doesn't make it any easier. You really dodged a bullet down there. It took guts to stand up to Zaid, but I'm glad you did. Not a lot of people go in and out of Dr. Chakwa's office, other than to get medical attention, I mean. I hear you shared a drink with her. That's really nice. I imagine with all that's happened, old friends are becoming a luxury. Come back later. I'm sure I'll have more to talk about.
Alright, Kasumi goes back to small talk rather quickly here, and so we can also slowly set our sights on what's next.
No messages for you, Commander.
Now, our next mission will likely be a very short one, and I might be able to squeeze 2 of them in a single video, but because of the holidays coming up, that will probably not happen before the end of the next week. Until then, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and as always, if you did, then I would be happy if you could leave a thumbs up, and if you want to support the channel further, then consider subscribing to stay up to date, or you can also support the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.